Video is sponsored by Fundamentals of Wood Carving. It's an online resource for those of you wishing to learn more about carving realistic faces in wood. It's a dedicated project I've been working on for the past 3 years. I upload a new project every month, and there's an online resource for those of you who want to interact with other students and get direct feedback from me. This is a resource, one of the largest resources of its kind for learning portraiture in wood, and if that interests you, then check out the link below. All right, today I'm going to be looking at the $28 set of carving tools that is actually fairly decent in a world of cheap pressed, pine-handled craft store garbage, and even worse yet, plastic-handled, poorly ground, untempered Buck Bros junk that shouldn't even exist. Whoever made this should be jailed. Anyway, the point is, this set isn't so bad, and I'm surprised because, again, it's $28, guys. This is uncomparably cheap. And the other thing is, it doesn't look that dissimilar. This is an Austrian-made professional tool. It doesn't look that dissimilar. So we're going to discuss if the edge retention, the grind angle, the fit and finish, and the overall durability of this tool compares to the professional grade stuff. So without further ado, let's get into it. So on this side of the bench, I've got the Chinese-made tools, and on this side, of course, the Stewy. So we're going to start by trying out the Stewy to set a standard, and I'm going to use these tools. Once again, they're not fully, whoa, knocking stuff over here. They're not fully sharpened, and you know, let's see, they have a pretty short grind angle. I mean, I'm not the best at guessing this sort of thing, but I'm going to say, looking at it, it's probably 25 degrees, maybe even a little bit steeper of an angle at the bevel here. So let's see how it cuts. And this is, of course, our softwood category, so this is not going to be a real challenge for any of these tools, even if they're fairly dull. But, you know, a dull tool makes itself apparent even in softer woods. In fact, sometimes even more apparent. All right, let's try the most comparable size and shape in the Chinese manufacturer. Here it is. Oh! Okay, first thing I notice, it glides through the wood a lot more easily, and what that is the grind angle. If you notice the difference here, the Chinese tool actually comes out the gate, let's see if I can get this to focus, with a better grind angle. Look at that. So this, believe it or not, is the higher quality Stewy right here, and this is the Chinese. And the Chinese, again, see that longer reflection here, this longer bevel? That's what we're looking at right there. That's going to make for an easier slide through the fibers of the wood, a better cut. Here's the Stewy, of course. Let's switch over to the Chinese made. The Chinese made V tool is a lot more angled. This is like a 45 degree. Which is very wide, so it's kind of hard to compare. Again, it's got a much longer bevel, but it's a thicker steel as well, which actually will affect the ability of the tool to glide through the material. So it's kind of a wash here between the two. I actually prefer the Stewy in this case, even though this is gliding through a little bit more easily. I just like the profile more, so it's not necessarily a fair comparison, but at the same time, you can't pick and choose what you get in this set. It just comes with what it has. So if you're going to pick a V-tool, this is not the ideal V-tool to pick for carving the type of carving I'm doing here. All right, let's move on to some medium wood. All right, now we're going to deal with basswood. This is of medium hardness. As far as hardwoods go, this is actually on the softer side, but compared to cottonwood bark, it's in the medium side of hard thing, right in the center. So again, we're using our flatter tools. This is a number 4, which is fairly flat, not a lot of curve to it. And this is the Stewy. So it's doing a good job of cutting through the wood. It's, again, a little bit steeper of a grind angle than I would be happy with, but that's usable. That's maybe a little bit flatter of a grind angle than the previous Stewy tool we used. So that's a good sign, but still, not the ideal grind angle. Again, I use Stewy tools on the daily, but I have reground them, and I just don't think it's fair to do that in this video because this is not what you'll be using. My tools ground to my levels of Well, perfection. Okay, so this is a Chinese tool. And man, already the grind angle is actually a little bit nicer, so it glides through the wood a little bit more easily than the Stewy does. All right, I'm gonna give each tool about 15 minutes of intense work, a good workout, and then at the end of it, compare the two and see how they hold up and how cleanly they cut through the harder wood. Still, of course, that line from the chip in the blade is showing up, and it's making the cut less than perfectly clean, but otherwise it's not terrible. Yeah, I'd much rather use the tools that I have that are made for this, but as far as cheap gouges go, this is faring really well. Now to get back to the Stewy and to put in a few minutes of use there and see how it holds up. Okay, doing a quick side-by-side comparison. This is the Stewy edge, and here is the Chinese manufactured edge. And already, as you can see, the edge from the Stewy is a lot cleaner. This is also probably due to the fact that the Stewy has a shorter bevel, which lends to longer blade retention. At the same time, though, I think the big factor here is the quality in steel. The lower quality Chinese tool started out sharper and easier to move through the wood, but gradually became a little bit less easy to move through the wood. It's also leaving a less polished surface behind, lending to the belief that I have that this is probably a cheaper quality steel, and that doesn't take any Sherlock Holmes to discover that, but this is actually surprisingly decent. Actually, I'm shocked as to how well this is held up over the test I've run it through. So not at all anything to scoff at. The Chinesium is actually really decent, and the Stewy, of course, performed as expected very well. Next, we'll see how the tools deal with an 8-foot drop test. We're going to drop them each 5 times and see if either of them react to that in any way. First, the Stewy. Now the Chinese. And as expected, neither of the tools appear to be damaged in any way. Both of them seem to be inserted nicely into the tang. Tang is still not loose in either of them, and that's a good sign. As stupidly simple as it sounds, we're going to test to see if these will stay together when I pull on them as absolutely hard as I can. And I have a good feeling about both of these tools as they've proven to be pretty tough in the drop test. All right, now I don't know exactly how many pounds of force I can pull, and so it's hard for me to exactly quantify it. As I can't pull either of these off, I'm confident that they're both decent in terms of their being fixed into the handle. Oh, look at that! I pulled the Chinese handle right out of the tang right out of the handle, and this is actually really fun because we can see the size of the tang and the way that it was designed. Oh, that's so neat. Yeah, it's a round tang. It took quite a bit of force, but it did pull out of the handle, which leads me to believe that it's not quite as durable a contact between the handle and the blade, right? Of course. I think the biggest takeaway is that the quality of steel in the Chinese tool is not as good as the steel in the Stewy, which, of course, right, that seems obvious. But what isn't obvious is that the grind angle from the cheaper tool is actually a little bit better than the Stewy out of the box. and is therefore more usable. Now, if we were to compare this to the Swiss-made tool, which comes previously sharpened, there's no denying that the Swiss-made would absolutely demolish this tool. So there's a bit of an unfair advantage that the Chinese has, in that it doesn't have to be very sharp to beat out the Stewy because of the grind angle. So the grind angle is better, whereas the quality of the angle of the actual edge on the Stewy is higher. So that makes for a better cutting tool, a smoother cutting tool. And of course, the durability was greater than the Chinese tool. So the Stewy had a better quality steel, a lower quality grind angle, but came out ahead in the durability test in that it was not able to be pulled apart in terms of the tang inserted into the handle. Couldn't pull that apart. Whereas with the Chinese brand, without a ton of effort, I was able to pull it out of the handle and get a little inside peek into how these are constructed. So very interesting, very, very interesting indeed. And I think the conclusion here is that while this is in fact, something like a fifth of the price, even less than a fifth of the price, because there are 12 of these in a set. I mean, way, way, way less than the Stewy. This is not a bad bargain. And if you are somebody who is thinking about starting into wood carving and don't have a big budget for carving tools, it might not be a mistake to get these tools to learn how to use a strop, which is a polishing tool, and polish these into a nice point of being razor sharp. It wouldn't take much because the edge is actually fairly well shaped. You can see that there's a fine grit stone that was used to create the bevel, and I'm very, very pleased with the way that these performed, even held up against the granddaddy old Austrian. So yeah, very pleased. I hope you guys learned something. I did for sure, and I'll see you in the next one. Take your vitamins, huh? Take them.